On Sunday, April 1st, 1973, I decided to go to Lady Macquarie's chair to do some drawing. I drew the waves and boats. I became obsessed with capturing the movement and shape of the waves. My drawing got faster and faster as I tried to capture the movement of the waves in the moment. I felt the waves moving within me. They seemed to actually move through my whole body and then throw themselves onto the page. The faster I drew, the quieter and more serene I felt. I did not feel the wind and the spray of the surf hitting me in the face anymore. I even lost all awareness of drawing. It was as though I was in the water and the water was in me. After a long time, I stopped, feeling completely exhausted and exhilarated. On May 13th, 2005, I began to paint a painting a day. My intention was to be satisfied with whatever I did in one day, as the sum total of each painting. But after a year, I felt that the paintings were not as finished as they could be, so I determined to keep adding to each painting, but only on the day of the year assigned to each painting. This is what happened in the preceding years and subsequently. My mother broke my right wrist when I was 13 months old. I began to draw at the age of 2. My mother beat me for drawing on the walls, so I drew behind the door so she wouldn't see it. I told her she was stupid, and she slapped me across the face, twice. When I was 6, I was hit in the third eye by a rock. When I was 8 years old, she ripped my right earlobe off my head. During primary school, my mother beat me nearly every day, while my peers boycotted me for being too clever. And my mother locked me in the bathroom for hours at a time. My only escape was to go within. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Wear your heart on your sleeve always, but pay it no heed at all. Care not for what others may say, they'll chatter whatever you may do. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Live by the impulse of the moment. Don't let fear sit on your face. deeper in young poet, move deeper in some more. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Be ever ready and able to be more naked than before. Think never you're naked enough. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. Go naked into the world, young poet. Go naked into the world. I used to paint only when I felt inspired, but that wasn't often enough. So I decided that I needed to paint every day, and I grew to be a better painter by painting every day. I saw it like building a house. Every day that I painted, it was like I created a brick. Brick by brick, I was building my house from the inside out. Painting allows me to find myself. I didn't have a very supportive environment growing up as a child. My parents moved 12 times by the time I was 15, so my world was constantly being shattered. I was constantly trying to find a way to hold on to my world, and I found painting enabled me to do that. I was able to create worlds that were mine alone, that no one could take away from me. I get up early in the morning because there is power in numbers and numbers in power. I have a shower and then I meditate. Meditation allows me to sink beneath the surface of things. I sit and watch and listen as things come and go. Many of the ideas in my paintings come from my meditations. Sometimes I see fully formed ideas, sometimes just bits and pieces. Meditation is my favorite place to visit. Sometimes in my meditations, I play around with the elements in my paintings to create new compositions. Sometimes ideas for my paintings come unexpectedly from unexpected sources. Sometimes they come from the things around me. After breakfast, I consider what to do next on the painting of the day. This hand, this poet's hand that paints for me, this hand that paints for you, this hand that paints for me, this hand that paints for all. Then I paint. I paint every day. Only if I paint every day can I legitimately call myself a painter. I paint early in the morning. That way I get to do first what I love most. Then I glow throughout the day because I've already done what I love most, so everything else seems insignificant by comparison. I paint organically. I allow the elements to emerge gradually, of their own accord, without a deadline or an end in mind. I watch for the pointers and clues of what to do next, which sometimes come from the paintings themselves. Painting takes me out of myself and then paradoxically takes me back into myself. In high school, I was beaten and bullied, till I learned the value and power of line and color and line. I reduced everything to line and color as a way of taming the world around me. On Saturday, February 10th, 1973, I used my finger to paint a seascape. Then, in a moment of brilliance, I stuck a red line on the horizon to simulate the setting sun and created one of my first attempts at merging reality with abstract ideas. On Sunday, April 1st, 1973, I decided to go to Lady Macquarie's chair to do some drawing. It was there that I first discovered that the only thing I wanted was to be an artist. I produced my first self-portrait at the age of 17 in line, and then at 18, I painted my first self-portrait in color. Painting allows me to turn shapes and colors into forms, contexts, and illusions. As I make painting, painting makes me. My paintings do not reflect the real world. I borrow objects like a feather or a cello player or a cup, and then I create new imagined environments. Context changes content. Context changes content. Context changes content. Context changes content. I like to take content, put it in a different context to show how context changes content. I like to take content, put it in a different context to show. My paintings often reference the action of illusion of painting. My only defense against the real world is my paintbrush. There are often figures flying in my paintings, because imagination is a form of flying. Even though people tell me I can't fly, I am flying all the time. I use falling as a counterbalance to flying. The only way to rise to heaven is to fall into hell. I use the frame to define and confine things. What you see is a reflection of who you are. I like to take content, put it in a different context to show how context changes content. Even though I live in Manhattan, I very rarely do any artwork that features New York. Unless, of course, I'm in downtown Manhattan making one of my music videos. Cutting across time and space through darkness and blinding light, over pinnacle and abyss, constantly and always in a straight line. I've loved you for 100,000 years. After my experience of drawing at Lady Macquarie's chair, I painted every day. I painted imagined but not fantasy sea and landscapes, progressing invertedly from abstract to realistic. I painted the places I wanted to escape to. I didn't need a car or a gang. I just needed a paintbrush, and that's all I had. I entered the void armed only with a paintbrush. On Saturday, September 29th, 1973, I couldn't stop thinking about Edith. Feeling that someone loved me made me feel like warm rays of sunshine were streaming into every dark corner of my consciousness. I decided to paint a whole series of realistic seascapes that portrayed a whole day from dawn to dusk, the day I felt Edith seemed to have given birth to in me. Painting opens me up. I've just released a CD of songs that I've written. It's kind of a companion to my paintings, because often the songs are about painting. Sometimes they're about other things, but there's a lot of references to painting. All I wanted was to paint, get a job, boy, what they said. I never wanted house or cars. All I wanted was to paint, get a haircut, what they said. All I wanted was to paint, move some paint from here to there, from there to here. I never wanted wife or kids. All I wanted was to paint. All I wanted was to paint, something new every day. I don't care. Let me paint. I don't care. Let me paint. I don't care. In 1975, the year after I finished high school, the films of Michelangelo Antonioni and the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche made me look at the world around me. I used my hand to size myself up in relation to the world. I seemed unable to grasp much of what the world wanted from me or what I wanted from it. Finally, I felt defeated and painted myself buried in the ground. Here lies David Arthu-Simons. Here lies David Arthu-Simons. Here truths David Arthu-Simons. Here truths David Arthu-Simons. May he ever grow in your mind. May he ever grow in your mind. Here truths David Arthu-Simons. May he ever grow in your mind. Here truths David Arthu-Simons. May he ever grow in your mind. Painting brings me to my senses. First, I paint the sky. Then I paint a foreground. And then I add some figures and some objects to create a scene. In the series of paintings 365 Days Out of My Mind, I use the same or similar figures, objects and settings so that the elements appear in different contexts and create new meanings throughout the series. After the figures, I paint an action which unites the landscape, figures and objects. The action can be anything from a nest of spheres to a figure flying through the air to a geometric construction which compositionally unites the elements in the painting. The final element in the paintings is usually a self-portrait that stretches over the whole painting and unites the foreground, the middle ground and background into an illusionistic gestalt. All the elements in my paintings are only ever psychological elements that first I reveal on the canvas and then try to bring compositionally into an aesthetic coalescence. This last step is always difficult, since it requires me to sacrifice the whole painting. If I fail in painting this uniting action, the whole painting is ruined. When I succeed, it always feels like I am creating or recreating myself as a new person on the canvas and in my life. The subject matter of my paintings is primarily illusion. I am constantly trying to show that whatever we see, hear, know and believe, and trust and rely on, it's all illusion. It's all illusion. A simple change in perspective can completely change one's perception of one's world, so everything in that way becomes an illusion. It's all illusion. The painting for December 1st began after I detected what seemed like a gestalt face in the depiction of St. Agnes on the altar of St. Agnes Church in New York. I painted two versions of the gestalt image, with a kneeling figure in front to show that belief is an idea that comes from projecting what you want to see. To show that the perceived vision was in fact a projection from the viewer's mind, I painted two figures holding the images of the altar of St. Agnes on bits of string. When this still didn't convey the idea clearly, I painted the rear view of two heads so that the visions of the altar of St. Agnes were actually inside their heads. I then painted two grids that contained self-portraits from the back of the heads, covering the kneeling figures to indicate the interconnection between the vision and the perceiver of the vision. Then I painted a self-portrait with eyes closed between the two figures to indicate objective perception. Finally, I painted another self-portrait over the whole painting to connect all the elements. From 1976 to 1979, while at Sydney College of the Arts, my inclination to rebel and challenge everything made me sometimes feel exalted and at other times defeated. So I painted myself as a fetus in a series of imagined settings that mirrored my alternating sense of defeat and exaltation. The films of Jean Cocteau and Jean-Luc Godard pushed me to go through and beyond the mirror to see myself in a different way. I painted landscapes in my head and painted myself onto stamps so that I could be in multiple dimensions and locations at the same time and escape the impositions of everyday life. I actually gave up painting in art school because one of my teachers said that surrealism, or as he called it, painting empty spaces, was easy, and that the real challenge was painting emotions, which is what he was doing. So for many years I went on a detour trying to paint emotions, and then I finally realized that I wanted to paint the so-called empty spaces and not emotional stuff. So I went back to painting that, and interestingly enough, I picked up just where I had left off by painting the same kind of landscapes and seascapes that I had painted when I was in high school. On Saturday, April 29th, 1978, I came up with a philosophy by which to define my approach to life: the theory of original reality. Original reality is reality to the power of zero, or original reality, the absolute I. Original reality is the idea that any one person can perceive an object or an idea to the fullest extent of their capacity on their own, without any middleman or filter of any kind. The reality of two is smaller than the reality of one, because it demands that physical location or conditional overlap, temporal location or delapment, and the agreed upon facts or overlapped reality all be identical, something which is physically impossible. With each increase in the number of people sharing in the reality of each individual becomes smaller. More people see less. When the number of reality is infinite, n realities, reality becomes chaotic. Thus 1 + 1 = 1/2. plus 1 is a half. 1 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 plus 1 is a half. More people see less. More people see less. More people see less. One plus one is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. 1 plus 1 is a half. Ha ha ha. At the end of art school, I created an alter ego for myself in the poet Holland.
Spell anti-establishmentarianism.
U N T I E S T A B L E A
You can't spell anti-establishmentarianism. You must be part of it.
The name Holland is reported to derive from the juxtaposition of two words, one English, hollow, and one French, homme. When elided together, they form the origin and identity of the poet as a hollow man. If then we split the word holum in half phonetically, we get whole and om, that is whole and om, a whole man, the destination of the poet. In 1980, the year after I finished art school, the writings of Hermann Hesse and Dostoevsky made me see that the world around me was the world inside me. This led me to have an identity crisis. I felt I had all sorts of personality disorders: swinging personality disorder, fashion inchoate personality disorder, expanding head personality disorder, sad-eyed laddie of the lowlands personality disorder, hobbling, spinning Bob Dylan identification personality disorder, reluctant messiah personality disorder, Icarus personality disorder, which led me to see and not believe. And to see that everything I see is at sea. On January 6, 1980, I drew myself with one eye cut open and within another eye trying to get out. I found a candlelight burning brightly within me. The light from the candle allowed me to see objects and landscapes embedded in my face, which I drew and painted as I sought to find my place in the world. My picture of myself grew to include such things as a snake, a lake in the mountains, a log, bananas, the hand of the poet, a key, an hourglass, infinity, another hand of the poet, fingerprints, the moon, and finally it encompassed the whole world. On Friday, November 1st, 1985, I just had $20 to my name. I stopped at a bookstore and found a copy of Proust's first novel that I had never before seen in print. I decided to buy it and spent half of all the money I had in the world. The only thing that ever mattered to me was the arts, painting, music, film and literature. I get many of my ideas for my paintings just walking down the street. Breathe not with your lungs, but with your heart. See not with your eyes, but with your hands. Hear not with your ears, but with your feet. Go, speak not with your mouth, but with your back. Dare, take not to heart what is not yours. Be free, open not that which is too old. Be new, give not another what you not have. Respect, close not the book which is your life. Reflect, be do go there, be do go there, be do go there, be do go there. Be not what you are, but rather what you'd rather. Do not what you can, but what you'd presume. Go not where you'll blend, but where you'll differ. Dare not what you'll succeed, but what you fear, and you will know the poetry that comes from being, going, doing and daring. Be do go there, be do go there, be do go there, be do go there. Once I get an idea, I do lots of thumbnail sketches to get past the obvious ideas. I keep pushing the envelope so I can come up with an idea that's really unexpected. I like the thumbnail sketches because they have a vibrancy and urgency and show how an idea develops. The path of an idea in motion is always an unusual, unpredictable, and convoluted series of events and revelations. That moment when you see what to do next to make an idea work, it's like being on drugs or having a sexual orgasm or like winning lots of money, but better than all these things put together. Because of the way I work on these paintings, once a year on each painting, I can't imagine what each one might look like at the end, so I have to play innocent in the process. I just paint a shape here or a figure there and then move on, because sometimes that's all I can think of to do on that day on that painting. But then when I come back to it the following year, then suddenly a small square of color becomes vital for the next development, which may be that suddenly the square becomes a tunnel, which I hadn't foreseen the previous year. I know that whatever I add is absolutely vital and essential, but I may not know why I am doing it at that point in time. And that's what I mean when I say I try to have as little conscious involvement as possible. And that's what I think makes the paintings work, the fact that I don't know what I am doing, in that sense. Yet it seems when I come back the following year and suddenly see the next step, it seems that I do know. It's really a wonderful conscious-unconscious interplay. I'm not good at committing to any one thing. I constantly change my mind, yet my constantly changing my mind pushes me to explore what others would have me ignore. Every idea is constantly on the edge between greatness and mediocrity. It can go either way. Painting makes me realize myself. On December 12, 1981, I went to see Antonioni's L'Avventura. I had seen the film a few times before, but became so immersed in the story that I didn't know what came next. I was completely shocked out of my seat when Sandro suddenly appeared from the left-hand side of the screen and moved across the frame. Suddenly everything went pitch black. I thought there was a power failure. Then I felt myself moving towards the screen, and then in a flash, I felt myself break through the screen and was actually standing in the film on Liscia Bianca, searching for the disappeared Anna with all the other characters. Then suddenly I felt I was standing at some crossroads between fiction and fact, some intersection point where Anna's disappearance in L'Avventura was the culmination point of dramatic resolution in the whole history of Western art by, ironically, not resolving Anna's disappearance. I looked down what seemed like tunnels in 4 cardinal directions and saw the history of art to the beginning of time in one direction and the history of mankind to the end of time in the other. Then suddenly everything went pitch black again, and I was back in my seat watching the film as if nothing had happened. For the next few years, I spent a lot of time thinking about and drawing the experience of falling into L'Avventura. I used collage to show myself being in the frame from every conceivable angle. It was a way of reliving the experience as much as a way of trying to understand how such a thing was possible. Each collage captured a fragment of my experience of standing inside L'Avventura, and at the same time, each collage moved further and further away from my original experience. I felt intensely connected to L'Avventura and the frame. Eventually, I did a painting called Frame of Reference, where I portrayed myself more literally as being in the frame. Eventually, I decided to paint myself standing in the frame of L'Avventura. I did a lot of thumbnail sketches till I decided on a composition I really liked. On Tuesday, May 28, 1991, I began to paint what would become a near life-size self-portrait standing in the fictional land of Tasmania, where everything was a mirror image of myself, and thus explained my fall into L'Avventura as a holographic experience, where the part is contained in the whole and the whole is contained in the part. It was titled Frame of Reference and contained many hidden self-portraits. In L'Avventura, by the light of a blue planet moon, I did lie down my head on the horizon to break open my egghead and pass the time idly away, singing songs on my two-faced lyre in the lush snowfields of my chill mind. I did there find my hand of a poet, with the key of a face I once knew, signed with an enigmatic formula in the land of Tasmania. Painting brings me home to myself. So Frame of Reference began as a single painting. Once I moved to New York in 1995, I continued to paint my experience of falling into L'Avventura by painting the amalgam of personal and historical scenes I had seen in the periphery of my vision while standing in L'Avventura. I saw my astrologically predicted potential to rise above my square origins and become a winged man. I saw that my life's purpose was to bridge impossible worlds. I saw the point where energy and time crossed each other and gave birth to new ideas. I became aware that the conscious from above and the unconscious from below met on the surface of the canvas to create the image. This led me through to the Blue Room, where I saw the way many ideas fight for recognition and how some return into the unconscious if not taken up. I was confronted by the real proposition that seeing is a matter of opinion and an afterimage more than a fact. History refracted through me as the Last Supper was portrayed by friends of mine. Each had a shield above their head to indicate the apostle they were portraying, and a number beside their head to indicate their date of birth, each one marked historically and personally. Then I saw myself as the Pietà, where I wept while I carried the remains of meaning through the deep waters of illusion. I passed through a diamond gateway that revealed to me my exalted, idealized self and my damaged, wounded self standing before a fiery and watery ellipse. I saw my hair in the shape of Eurasia and the Americas, and saw myself as the archetypes of mother, puer aeternis, shadow, and trickster. I moved through a land where the earth became part of the body and the body became part of the earth, and then the two became one in an apotheosis of inner and outer. I then moved through a mirror image. I then saw myself as Christ nailed to the earth, and my art in heaven passed between the contemplative and active paths. Between waterfalls, I saw myself meditating. I saw myself playing all the parts in the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. In the first scene, the death of Eurydice, the moment where the spirit in the form of birds leaves her body. And having left one body, it takes on other forms, as Oedipus, Orpheus, and Odysseus. And then the four skins of the blonde, the redhead, the brunette, and the black man. And finally as Perseus holding the head of Medusa. And then, as Orpheus, I return from the underworld, carrying the head of Eurydice in front of me, thus defeating the god's condition. And having defeated the gods, Orpheus becomes an oracle with a fringe that is his profile. As I continued on, I could see all the illusions around me. I took a hold of the very corners of my reality, and the frame of my beliefs fell, and I held onto an edge of what I knew before I had fallen into l'avventura. But I was as satisfied as doubting Thomas when I returned suddenly to my seat to watch l'avventura as if nothing had happened.
Painting is, for me, the relationship. That is it. That's the record of that relationship. Because that, for me, is the purer relationship, because there's no fights, there's no craziness. It's just this beautiful image, you know, that I can kind of like look at and go, oh yes, that was a nice experience. The thing that I often choose, I would rather choose to have the painting of my experience of someone than to have the relationship, because the relationship is so painful and so unpredictable and so crazy making, and I often can't deal with it. You know, I can't deal with the unforeseen variables that can occur. I don't have the staying power often to stay when all that is going on. I can do it for a little bit, but when it's like every day, I just go crazy. I just want to kill myself. So I'm kind of like stuck with this option of, either having pain or painting. And, guess what option I choose? The art of pain / ting.
Who can bear my pain? Who can bear my pain? Who can bear my painting? Who can paint me bear? Painting is a very physical thing. Some ideas emerge only in the action of painting. But the thing is, you can't just be a painter to create depth in your painting. You have to be a reader, a writer, a poet, a philosopher, a film viewer, a filmmaker, a dancer, a singer, a songwriter, a thinker, and then all these personae hold the brush while you paint. Painting allows me to experience the surge of life passing through me. The creative process, the process of storytelling, whether in words or pictures or music, is never referred to or discussed in any of the scriptures of any religion. Possibly because this could lead to questioning how the scriptures were created, and to the understanding that to create is to be like God. In fact, the creative process and imagination in general are often denigrated to ensure that the creative process is not understood as the source of all things, including the scriptures and the story of God.
I don't want to wake up, I don't want to go on, I don't even want to watch TV, I don't want to be free, I don't want to be me, I don't even want a cup of tea, all I want is you, only you will do, only you can make my dreams come true. I bow to that place where you and I are one, weeping from this place where you and I were nearly one, weeping from this place where you and I have come undone. I don't want to make sense, I don't want to be friends, I don't even want to act my age, I don't want to let go, I don't want to move on, I don't even want to sing this song, all I want is you, only you will do, only you can make my dreams come true. I bow to that place where life would have you go. I bow to that place where life would have me go. Weeping from this place where you and I are no longer one. I don't want to let go, I don't want to go on, I don't even want to talk past lives, I don't want to be free, I don't want to be me, I don't even want a spot of tea, all I want is you, only you will do, only you can make my dreams come true.
Painting makes me visible. Painting brings me out of the clouds. Painting brings me into focus. I am the man of cloud. No. My paintings are not egotistical or self-centered or even narcissistic. You see, most people find their sense of belonging in their relationships through their family, friends, and the house where they live and grew up in, and their job, their country, their flag, all these things. But I don't have any of these things except for some friends. And so I find my sense of belonging and in my paintings. My paintings are my children and my friends and my relatives and everything. When I was younger, I used to paint other people, my friends, but I found that they weren't consistently available as models. Often they would move away, they would go and live in another country, in another city, or I didn't have access to them in the way that I wanted to. And that's when I realized that the only way I could continue to work on my paintings in the way that I wanted to, which is to go deeper and deeper into the subject matter, that I would have to use myself as my main subject. So it's not an egotistical or narcissistic thing, it's simply a matter of convenience. Because I am around all the time and I can, use myself as a model whenever I want to. Everything that a person does is a self-portrait. We can't escape ourselves. Every action brings all of our history and all of our perceptions into the present moment, at every moment. So I'm making that real literally, by painting myself over and over in different contexts, as a way of showing that I remain the same while everything around me changes. Even if I do seem to take on some of my surroundings and appear to blend in, I am always only my original self and nothing else. Painting allows me to go to places that no one else has seen or been to, that even I have not seen except by painting them, because they exist only in my mind. Frame of reference was also a novel which I was writing at the same time as I was making the painting. The novel was an illustrated text that had 5 independent but interlocking texts. It tried to portray the fractal holographic nature of life, that is to say that the whole is contained in the part and the part is contained in the whole, by showing how each of us lives the whole history of the world, the whole history of art, and the whole history of cinema in our every action, so that each of us has a Renaissance period, a Baroque period, an Impressionist period, etc. The novel was set in 4 different time-space continua, all of which met in the fall into L'Avventura. Painting becomes me. I become painting. Painting becomes me. I become painting. I like to paint 2 or 3 or more times a day, and in between times I like to do other things that may or may not connect me back to the painting. Sometimes moving away from the painting brings me closer to the painting. Waiting for a whole year before working on the painting again, it feels like I just turned away from the painting for a few minutes. I'm able to pick up the threads and see what needs to be done, even though I haven't thought about the painting at all in the intervening year. I see faces wherever I look. They allow me to perceive the underlying and unifying patterns in everything, whether it be a 3M strip, some photos on the wall, a shopping bag, a pair of trousers, or an altar. If I try to draw a tree, it becomes a face. If I draw a car, it soon enough turns into a face. A drawing of a hand becomes a face. Even a map of the world becomes a face. Just as I see faces in everything, so I also see everything in faces. On January 9th, 1984, I did a series of self-portraits as projected identities like a violinist, magician, model, psychic, housewife, sphinx, Oscar Wilde, and John F. Kennedy. On March 28th, 1987, I built my identities into my face as words. And then on July 4th, 1988, I built scenes like a tree in a field and events like a water drop exploding and an earthquake into my face. On March 11th, 1989, I built a secret garden into my face, and on August 24th, 1989, I built a secret room into my face. I also notice unusual and unexpected connections everywhere in my life. From October to December 1993, I printed photos of myself onto stamps for the fictional country of Tasmania. Whenever I screen printed, I also printed onto odd or colourful bits of paper, pages from magazines or newspaper, in the hope of creating some unusual or unexpected results. When I moved to New York in 1995, I lived on 14th Street, coincidentally directly across the street from where Marcel Duchamp had lived for 20 years. One of the people I met in New York was Brad Harriman. We lived close to one another and often met on the street. I took photos of him and painted him as an angel in one of my paintings. On August 2nd, 2000, Brad committed suicide in his apartment. 12 years later, on Tuesday, June 19th, 2012, my photo book of clouds titled Transit of Venus arrived. It was so beautiful I could barely believe it. I decided that I would make a book of my stamps from 1993 and began immediately to photograph them. I searched for the book in which I used to screen print some of my experiments. I couldn't believe it when I found that I had printed some stamps on a page from a magazine that featured a photo of Brad Harriman. This was 5 years before I actually met Brad in New York. Then I remembered the astrological prediction for the day of June 19th that said that Jupiter would align with Venus and bring about events related to July, August 2000. My life is written on the pages of a book, but lived in mid-air. The David Arthu-Simons Portable Museum, featuring 90 works in miniature from 4 decades by David Arthu-Simons, printed on 100% cotton paper, beautifully packaged in a miniature aluminium suitcase to take with you wherever you go. A dazzling work of art. Only $19,566.99. Available worldwide. After identifying myself with various mythological figures, I decided to expand my self-identification between July and November 2002 to include monuments and locations that I had visited in the pencil drawings titled Finding Myself in Rome, Paris, Florence, and New York. I included floating spheres and spirals that simulated a microscopic atomic level environment while portraying macroscopic cityscapes of Rome, Florence, Venice, Paris, and New York. The drawings brought together history, memory, myth, and place into one unified context. Most especially in the drawing of myself in Florence, standing where Dante had stood when he met Beatrice, according to the Henry Holiday painting, which included the Henry Holiday scene in a sphere floating in the air beside me. After portraying myself in cities between July and August 2003, I drew myself in nature, with mountainsides, bridges, trees, and roads weaving themselves into and around my face and body. One drawing, when turned on its side, revealed a winding path that is shaped like the word Om, and also a heart shape. All who see me want to stay in my shade, lie on my grass, fish in my rivers, climb my trees, and splash in my pond. I've become alive. I've become alive. I've become alive. Painting. Painting brings me into perspective. My paintings emulate the multiple layers that you experience in thought, dreams, meditation, and drugs. The weightlessness, the floating, the layer upon layer. The way they are created over long periods of time means that they exist in multiple times and spaces and reflect multiple dimensions of me. Proust says that art allows us to make sense of things that happen in our lives. If we don't transform things through art, then they are just meaningless bits of time and space. But when we take an experience and turn it into art, it becomes part of us and transforms us. After portraying myself as inner, outer, other, city, and landscape, I portrayed myself just by looking in the mirror and created a total of 108 self-portraits between August and December 2003. I had intended to create 365 self-portraits, but I stopped after 108 and began to write my life story instead. There have been many rebels who lost the last battle, now finally a rebel who wins every battle. Through art. Dazzling Publications presents the first of 4 volumes of David Arthu-Simons' autobiography titled From Lonely to Alone. Are you in it? Probably. When I paint, I go out of my mind, a state of no mind. It's like I'm not there. The painting happens, I witness it. Just like when I was 16, drawing the waves, when I disappeared, and the drawing was somehow happening by itself, a unity consciousness, a no-mind experience. Painting allows me to find myself. Painting brings me out of myself and then paradoxically takes me back into myself. Painting allows me to turn shapes and colors into forms, contexts, and illusions. As I make painting, painting makes me. I enter the void armed only with a paintbrush. Painting brings me to my senses. Painting makes me realize myself. Painting allows me to experience the surge of life passing through me. Painting opens me up. Painting allows me to travel to places I would never otherwise be able to go to. Painting becomes me. I become painting. Painting brings me into perspective. Painting brings me to myself. Painting transforms me. Painting allows me to find myself. Painting allows me to find myself. Painting brings me out of myself and then paradoxically takes me back into myself. Painting allows me to turn shapes and colors into forms, contexts, and illusions. As I make painting, painting makes me. I enter the void armed only with a paintbrush. Painting brings me to my senses. Painting makes me realize myself. Painting allows me to experience the surge of life passing through me. Painting opens me up. Painting allows me to travel to places I would never otherwise be able to go to. Painting becomes me. I become painting. Painting gives me something to do each day. After I finish a painting, I generally cut it up or burn it. The real thrill is in creating. After that, it's all about money.
No man, no man, no man, no man, no man's an island, no man's an island, no man's an island, except for Manhattan, no man's an island, no man's an island, no man's an island, except for Manhattan.
Well, I like this one. I also like this one here because of the way, the figures are kind of moving, the whole perspective is changing. This one is an interesting one because it's actually a self-portrait of myself as the World Trade Center towers. So you've got the smoke billowing here, and you've got the second plane about to hit the first tower, or the second tower rather.
And then in the background, it's got the Hollywood Hills, but it's actually hollow wood hills, because I'm referring to the fact that, you know, Hollywood is hollow, and the end of the American kind of whole idea of, you know, America being like a Hollywood place where everything was like a fantasy world came to an end when 9/11 happened. You know, that was the destruction of America's innocence and, you know, dream world. Painting is a form of dancing, and dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting.
You ooze, starving artist.
Choose to be an artist. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of writing. Writing is a form of dancing. Painting is a form of singing. Singing is a form of painting. Painting is a form of eating. Eating is a form of painting. Painting is a form of swimming. Swimming is a form of painting. Painting is a form of running. Running is a form of painting. Painting is a form of painting. Painting is a form of painting. Painting is a form of football. Football is a form of painting. Painting is a form of drinking. Drinking is a form of painting. Painting is a form of sleeping. Sleeping is a form of painting. Painting is a form of marriage. Marriage is a form of painting. Painting is a form of loving. Loving is a form of painting. Painting is a form of therapy. Therapy is a form of painting. Painting is a form of painting. Painting is a form of painting. Painting is a form of dancing. Dancing is a form of writing. Writing is a form of singing. Singing is a form of eating. Eating is a form of swimming. Swimming is a form of running. Running is a form of painting. Painting is a form of painting. Painting is a form of football. Football is a form of drinking. Drinking is a form of sleeping. Sleeping is a form of marriage. Marriage is a form of loving. Loving is a form of therapy. Therapy is a form of painting. Painting. Now I know in my head's a universe of free. Universe that no one can see except me spilling it onto my page. Now
A line is bouncing around in my head, looking for exit. A line is bouncing around in my head, looking for exit. It runs down my arm and shoots onto the page and glides and skims and spreads across my page, making a shape here, another shape there, a shape here, another shape there, a shape here, another shape there, a shape here, from my head to my hand, from my hand to the page. It makes visible what's in my head. Now I know in my head's a universe of free, universe that no one can see except me spilling it onto my page. Now I know in my head's a universe of free, universe that no one can see except me spilling it onto my page. Now I know in my head's a universe of free, universe that no one can see except me spilling it onto my page.
Hello? Skylar, hi, I'm good, but I can't talk to you right now. On May 13, 2005, I began to paint a painting a day. I did this partly to wean myself off frame of reference and the fall into l'avventura, which I had been thinking, writing and painting about more or less from 1981 to 2004. The paintings soon took over my life as familiar themes began to emerge, like the theme of illusion, as well as the sub-series on ways to commit suicide. Thus began the series of paintings 365 Days Out of My Mind. I began the series of suicide paintings with the deliberate intention of facing my worst fears while I was going through a period of uncertainty from October to November 2005. I pictured various ways and settings to commit suicide, as well as scenes of the subsequent imagined mourning. Each scene helped me to understand some of my unconscious motives for wanting to commit suicide, which it turned out had nothing to do with wanting to end my life. Each painting thus became a layer of an onion that, when peeled away, revealed my deeper desire to go on living and be creative. To tell the truth, I have to cut my own throat. Especially liberating was the scene in which I pictured myself to be hung from a rope that turned out to be the penis of Christ, a graphic illustration of my recognition that all religions are a form of spiritual suicide. Painting takes me to the heights. And drops me into the depths. I'm working on a series of 365 paintings, one for each day of the year, and I work on each painting on each day of the year, and then I come back to it the following year and keep adding and adding to it. And I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I think it's going to be another 4 or 5 years before it's finished. So like this painting here, for example,
I've worked on that for 4 years so far, since 2008. So this year I'm going to come back, and there's a few more things that I want to add to it. For example, I can see that it needs a little, dark area in here to make this continue on, and there's a few other things I want to put in the background. So I just keep adding till it's finished, and they get more and more complex all the time, and that's what I do. That's my life at this point. It's a very big project. It's taking a lot of time, and I have to work on it every day.
Each painting has its own history and development. Mostly I add to each painting, but sometimes I paint over things I had previously painted, things that I really liked. I remind myself that sometimes you have to get rid of the best bits in order to make the whole composition work. Sometimes my whole outlook changes in the intervening year and makes it necessary for me to remove certain elements. The painting for December 29 began in 2005 as a scene of a man beneath a crucifix. The following year I turned away from Christianity and so got rid of the crucifix and painted some more clouds. On December 29th, 2012, I painted a hand on the man in the foreground and put a brush in his hand as a reflection of my return to a Nietzschean approach to life, being personally responsible for one's ascension in life. This then made me paint a figure emerging from the tip of the brush and flying into the birds and becoming one of them. Once I finished the painting, I turned around to look at it and saw a whirlpool as a third eye on a face in the central part of the painting. So I painted a self-portrait with a whirlpool in the third eye at the center of the painting. The whirlpool represented the third eye from which all visions emerge, into which the man was flying, having come out of the tip of the brush of the man at the bottom of the painting, which was a portrait of me painting. The painting was a frame within a frame within a frame that expressed the dynamic convolutions of my creative process. I create myself by flying into the whirlpool of my mind. Painting brings me back to myself. At the end of the first year, when I began to add to each painting, I had a real struggle about altering a painting I hadn't worked on for a year. I felt each painting was a historical event that I would destroy if I altered it. My sense that the paintings were not finished, however, pushed me to keep adding to each painting. Once I put brush and paint to canvas, I found that time and space disappeared. It felt like I had never stopped painting each painting at all, and that I could go on painting forever and never finish. The paintings literally pulled me back into their orbit whenever I appeared before them, and yet ceased for me to exist in the intervening year while they were stored away. This really changed the whole experience for me. It was as if each element in the painting was suspended in the infinity of time and space, and was waiting for me to add or subtract them to or from each painting. I was part of the process, but not the decisive part. The paintings had a mind of their own. I simply held the brush and brought some of my history and aesthetic to bear. To find myself in the painting, I had to give up my mind and become of no mind. Cutting across time and space, through darkness and blinding light, over pin
like an arrow unbroken, centuries long, aimed in the bow of my heart, will always shoot at you. I'll love you another 100,000 years. And in the end I'll have loved only you. And in the end I'll have loved only you. And in the end I'll have loved only you. But through you I will have loved everyone. But through you I will have loved everyone. All who see me want to stay in my shade, lie on my grass, fish in my rivers, climb my trees, and splash in my pond. I've become alive. I've become alive. I've become alive. I've become alive. I've become